is Groundeffected. My name is your dad, and this video today was sponsored by CA3D Studios. I'm going to be painting Gonad the Barbarian. Also, I have been sent this new airbrush complete kit to test out, so we're going to use it to paint this man and see if it's worth even buying this thing in the first place. And this kit is from Gallery. I don't actually know how to say the name. Gallery. It's them. From that company, which you may have been seeing a fair amount of on the interwebs at this point. This is the box that it comes in. It explains everything that is inside of the box. There is a small little compressor, an airbrush, a pipe to run it. Basically everything you need to start airbrushing. Now what you get inside of the box is obviously your airbrush, which it seems to be made of a very nice metal, which hopefully most airbrushes are made of. The cup or cap or whatever you want to call this thing is actually removable. So obviously I need to put this together, and also there is also in the box some little holders, which it looks to be that they connect onto the compressor so you can hold your airbrush next to it, which is obviously a great thing. But let's get this entire thing out the box. Let's put it all together, plug it into the wall, and see how it works. So inside of the box, like I said, you get the airbrush, you also get the little compressor, you get the hose, and you get the adapter. I am in the UK, so we have this weird plug to anyone that is not in the UK. And basically, that is everything inside of the box. I'm going to plug it in now and see what harpoons. It doesn't have a tank, so obviously as soon as you push the button and air comes out, it needs to pump again to keep the air going. So if you have a little listen, that's pretty much the only thing, is that it needs to make a noise while it's working. It's not like that one doesn't make a noise anyways. I'll be totally honest though, if you are going to get something like this, you definitely need one of these. I know it's extra cost, but seriously, like there's nowhere to get rid of the paint once it's inside the airbrush, and you need this thing to get rid of it. I mean, you could probably empty it out, clean it out, but man, it is going to be such a nightmare. Just buy one of those extra if you are buying this. Also, if you are interested in this entire setup, then I'm going to leave a link in the description so that you can pick one up for yourself. It will be an affiliate link, so that does obviously help the channel. And let's just get painting the Gonad. I usually spray at a very, very high pressure, so I'm going to literally hit this button for maximum pressure so that I can have maximum pressure. Now let's get on to painting the Gonad, and for Gonad I'm going to paint a zenithal highlight like I always do for pretty much all my models. Then I'm going to take a pinkle color and spray that over the top. I know I say this in every video, but pinkle is just some kind of color between pink and purple. You then need to take something like red and spray that into the shadows over the black. I have had some people mention before that it doesn't make any difference whether you do a zenithal and all of these things underneath the layers of skin first, because you're not even going to see it because you're covering it up with paint. Well, you're wrong. You couldn't be any more wrong. You need to not cover it up with the paint, because covering it up is exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. You're meant to be using it as the undercoat and putting thinner coats over the top. Let's stop ranting about it and talk about this base. On this base, for the renders, it was a pretty simple, desaturated grey base. So I'm just going to work on that, and I think it's going to work with the character, especially for given the time that this movie came out. It wasn't the most glorious of HDR videos, so I feel like the colors make sense. I'm going to take a greeny, bluey kind of grey as the first color, and I'm going to dry brush that over everything, then working up to a neutral grey and a deck tan in the highlights, using deck tan onto the bones as well as a highlight skin to make the bones nice and white. I'm then going to make them no more white by adding skeleton horde to them. I also dry brushed a little bit of silver over the top of this helmet, and I then used the liquid skill in a bottle to give it some shadows. I'm then going to take some of this grey contrast color, which has got a blue tint to it, and I'm going to spray it into some of the shadows. I specifically focus around the shadows underneath the gonad, and then when I'm done with that, I'm going to rim this model with some black. So I figured out that I may have missed a piece of skin on the legs. Let me show you quickly. So this little piece on the legs here, between the straps on both the legs, to be honest, is actually a piece of skin, and so I'm going to need to obviously paint that skin tones. Hopefully I don't not do that, because that would be stupid if I didn't do it now. So I might as well just do it now, and then I'll just be careful not to get any paint near that. Luckily, it's just the straps of his legs, so that should be really easy to just deal with later, but I'm going to need to spray over here and spray over there separately without masking, because masking is for dogs. I'm also going to just turn down the pressure, the air pressure on this machine, because I don't want it to be blasting out while I'm trying my hardest to not get paint everywhere. I just need to only get one area, not the other. So I laid down the same foundation for the legs in that little area, and then moved on to adding on some of the layers of skin tone. I'm going to start out with this salmon rose, and I'm going to spray this over everything, almost 50% of water and 50% of paint. This is going to help to make that lovely red and pink layer stand out underneath it. Again, don't cover up this layer. If you cover it up, you're doing the wrong thing. I'm going to add a little bit of white into that salmon rose, and I'm going to spray that very carefully into some of the highlighted areas, and then as you can see that this is looking very desaturated and not skin-like at all. But this is where the magic of orcish dermis comes in, and I'm going to use that to spray around some of the bendy areas of the body, mostly a lot into the shadows. And yes, this is going to cover up some of that initial foundation color, but it's not actually covering it up. It's that lovely transition between foundation color and the new color that you add on top, and also leaving some and not leaving some. That's how you get the skin tones. In fact, that's how you get any kind of shades on any kind of an item, actually, if I'm being totally honest with you. And as you can see, this gives a fantastic look. Now, this does not look barbarian enough, so I'm going to take Guilliman Flesh, which is a contrast paint, and I'm going to spray that again into the shadows. And yes, it does appear like it's covering everything up, but it's not. This paint is so see-through, it's ridiculous. If I had to not have the dark shadow underneath, it would not look the same. That's just the honest truth. Now, in order to further tan his skin even that little bit further, I'm going to take yellow, and in this case I'm using water with a little bit of yellow mixed into it, not the other way around where you put paint first and then a little bit of water. This is literally the smallest amount of yellow, and I'm going to spray that over everything. But now I want to bring those highlights out even more, and I'm going to use highlight skin again very thin in my airbrush in order to bring out those highlights nicely. Now I can work on those boots, and I use Skeleton Horde to get the initial color, and then Agrax Earthshade into the shades or shadows of the area to create some contrast between the colors. Now I'm going to use this darkish gray, and I'm going to just paint every single strap that is on his feet. Now it's time to bring some more deck tan into the party, and I'm going to use that to paint the fur around his calves. Obviously I'm going to use this on all the other furs, but I'm just referring to the calves right now, and I'm going to paint that over everything. When I'm done with that coat, I'm going to use some Skeleton Horde to spray into the shadows to make it look a little bit dirtier. But I'll come back again with a deck tan and dry brush that over the top, and that makes the feet done, which leads me on to the sponsor of this week's video, and that is CA3D Studios. CA 3D Studios is a Patreon over on Patreon where they create models every single month. Usually their monthly releases consist of 10 models and a welcome pack of 4 models. That's 14 models off the rip. You can start out by joining at their enthusiast tier, which is only $15 a month plus the VAT obviously, and you will get all of those models, all 14 of those models. However, if you join at the VIP tier, then you will be getting all of those models, plus on the second month you'll get access to the previous 2 months, on the third month access to the previous 3 months, fourth month previous, friggin' all the STLs basically by the 5th month, and you will just have everything. You can be the owner of all of CA 3D Studios' entire freaking library of models. That's just crazy. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. There is some amazing sculpts, some amazing artists that are literally making sculpts with this Patreon. It's something you just don't want to miss out on. Trust me when I tell you this. Go to the description, join CA 3D Studios today, and just bask in the gloriness of all the models you are about to print and paint. Now back to painting Gonad, and unironically we are painting the area around his gonads, and I did that by just spraying it with a brown and then adding more brown on top of that brown until it was brown enough, basically. Really, a reddish brown works here, and in my case you saw that I used some contrast and washes in order to create this leathery look. I'm going to take a bronze in place of gold and I'm going to paint that over his little buckle for his belt, and then I'm going to take some of those exact same browns and paint them over the sword things that are also, I assume, made of the same or similar leather to what his Gonad coverer is made out of. And once again I'm going to use deck tan to paint the fur that comes out of the crotch area all around him, and I'm going to use a skeleton horde to make it a little bit dirtier, and then I'm going to dry brush it again using the same deck tan and also my Artist Opus dry brushes, which I'm actually starting to like quite a lot, to be honest. I'm then going to be able to attach his legs and then move those legs onto the bottom part of the legs. So legs on legs. Now we have half of a model. I can move on to painting the torso. Using that exact same bronze, I'm going to paint his awesome little medallion on his neck. And then I'm going to paint the teeth using deck tan, and I'm going to then paint, obviously, that lovely necklace that he is wearing, but this time I'm going to use black instead of brown because I don't know why, I feel like it would be black, but also the contrast of this color will just stand out really nicely against that skin. I'm now done with the torso, and I can move on to his weapons, and his weapons are pretty simple really. I'm going to paint silver over all of the silver parts, which is, in this weapon's case, a round the handle hilt thing, and also the tip of that thing. I also used a darker brown over the central piece here so that there was a slight difference in the colors on the brown. It's nothing serious, it's just changing what your mind sees those colors to be. Same approach goes for that awesome dagger that he has on the other side of him, and it's basically easy as pie. Once it's done, stick it on him. I am so friggin' close to having this model done now. I can start working on his hands as well. Now I just missed the time when this came out because I was not shot out of my dad's ball bag yet, and basically I have no idea anything about this character other than my dad really liked this character and we watched this movie many a times, but due to the fact that I was an infant I didn't actually pay any attention. And even if I did, I cannot remember a single thing about it, and all I know is that it is a Conan the Barbarian and it's my dad's favorite actor. However, I do know that a barbarian probably doesn't have 2 swords, and in this case he is holding one and has one on the side of him, which I have a feeling that that is possibly his father's sword, but I could be wrong, and if I am, you should probably leave in the comments a little bit of information for me, if you will, about why the heck does this guy have 2 swords, and we'll get over the fact that he's holding the blade of this sword with his other hand because it's clearly made of some kind of leather never mind that, any kind of good barbarian should be able to hold the sword by the sharp part, because if they can't, what's the point of being a barbarian? Anyway, painting this stuff was super easy. You can see I literally just used grey for his straps, same on the other arm to be fair, and I used that bronze to paint the golden parts of the sword. I then painted silver over the sharp other part of the sword. I don't know the words for the fancy terminology of swords, and I gave that a little bit of a shadow, so it wasn't so boring and flat silver on its own. I then used that bronze to go over the edges, and that's Bob is your uncle. Sword is done. In fact, that was not it done, because I actually ruined it by spraying that blue-grey, and it ruined the skin tones, but don't worry about it. I went back and sprayed over those skin tones again while you weren't looking. That's to make me look like I know what I'm doing, and you to think that this is just really easy. It is kind of easy, to be fair, as easy as painting hair, and in this case, by leaving all that skin tones over everything, and then painting something like a contrast paint like Sagor Brown over the top, this gives me automatic highlights and shadows, without even trying. It's not good enough though. We will come back later and fix that, not before we give him a 5 o'clock shadow using that same grey that we've been using through everything throughout this project so far. I'm going to use that same Sagor Brown to paint his eyebrows, and I use short little strokes even if they are not tidy. It's just to make sure that these are not solid freaking painted stripes across his forehead, because that is going to look weird. If you paint them in little stripes, it's going to kind of look like hairs. They don't have to be completely perfect, but they will work. I used that same brown for the inside of his eyes because unlike female characters, he wouldn't have as much mascara on, and so we don't want that to be pitch black. A brown is a good way of starting the eyes for male characters, and that's just how it is. I'm going to use snakebite leather to paint around his awesome freaking tiara that he's wearing, and then I'm going to use some silver to trim all the trimming on that headband. Most of the trimming, to be fair, because it's just these little knuckle ball things that go around the outside and around the center thing, whatever it is, and then it's brass around the entire rim of his epic tiara. Before we get to the end of this model, I want to tell you a little trick about painting brown hair specifically. If you take a copper color and dry brush this just into the highlighted areas of the hair, it's going to trick your eye into seeing brown hair. It's just how it is. I don't know why that's the case, but I learned this when I was fixing a Hot Toys model once for someone, and it just works really well. I used a dark brown to go over that and hide some of the dry brushing areas that I'm useless at painting, and when I was done with that, I came to work on the eyes, and for his eyes I just used a dark brown. I didn't go heavy with making a mad shade on the inside of his eyes because he doesn't need beautiful eyes, he needs dark piercing eyes, and I painted a highlight over the top of the pupil after I put the black on, and then I could put this head on top of the model and call it done. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it gave you some insight into painting Gonad the Barbarian in case you ever decided you wanted to paint Gonad. However, a lot of this information can be extrapolated and used to paint other models as well. Hopefully you have put 2 and 2 together and figured that out. Otherwise, if not, I'm not sure anyone can help you at this point. Either way, we are at the end of a video, and I want to say a massive thank you for watching another one of my weird ass videos where I'm painting some form of a character on the internet. Also, I want to say a massive thank you, obviously, to my Patreons, because without them, the lights wouldn't be able to blind my eyeballs, and I would not be able to keep doing this thing that I actually really enjoy doing. Another thank you needs to go out to CA3D Studios for sponsoring this video, because that helps me buy lunch while I paint a model. Now, of course, we are at the end of the video, and if you were watching this video on the toilet, make sure you wash your hands, and click the like button and subscribe button after you've done that. We're so close to 100,000 subscribers, which is absolutely mental. Either way, if you didn't like anything you saw in this video, obviously I don't care, and you should probably f*** off now.